My name is Shim, and I'm from Jipyeong, Korea. Some may be curious about what Jipyeong means. It means horizon. So we are the firm who are looking for the futures, and it's very much with the fintech issues. First of all, I appreciate the World Fintech Forum giving this precious opportunity to run practices issues for speakers of all of the world. And also it is my pleasure to introduce changes in regulatory scheme in Korea to develop and support the fintech business. Like all other countries in the world, also in Korea, finance industry always had been closely related to the information technology. But the role of the IT in finance industry has been evolving for a long time. I began my practice as a finance lawyer almost 20 years ago, and at that time, information technology was classified as a pure back office functions. Technology in finance industry was regarded to mean database or processing system or network connecting financial companies. And after that, I witnessed telebanking, internet banking, and mobile banking in turn. And suddenly, information technology became one of the important sales channels, and it shared a front office role with offline channels. Now, many people do not visit a bank branch even once a year because they can do almost every banking transactions through computer and mobile, at home, at school, or on the street. But even in this phase, it was required that at least at the time when we open a bank account and apply for these internet banking services, we should see face of our bank staffs. That means then online channel is still dependent on existence of offline channel. But now, IT is independent financial service providers. It does not need existence of offline branch anymore. Like internet bank or crowdfunding, from beginning to end, all financial services are provided through computer and mobile on non-face-to-face basis. So it is very fundamental changes in traditional financial industry, and now it is said that the biggest threat to financial companies are not the other financial companies, but the IT companies. But until recently in Korea, the regulations of fintech and finance industry remained in the second stage. So most of the regulations assume that there must be face-to-face contact with customers and financial companies. We will go into details of these old regulations based on such assumptions, and compared with world-class ICT technology of Korea, the development of fintech has been relatively modest because of those old regulations based on old base. However, growth of fintech and convergence of IT and finance is irrevocable. So in Korea, many the regulations and support from the government side had been made to boost fintech industry, and many vigorous and intelligent businessmen and women gathered in fintech industry as well. This table showed the number of registered electronic financial companies. You may regard it as fintech companies. As of the end of each year, and the number of electronic financial transactions during each year. As you may see, compared with previous years, during 2015, the number of electronic financial companies and electronic financial transactions increased significantly. The main plan of the regulations and support for Fintech in Korea is the plan to support Fintech growth announced by the Korean Financial Supervisory Commission in January 2015. This plan provided three big agendas. First, the government will change the regulatory paradigm. Second, it will reform outdated and offline-based financial regulations. Three, it will actively support growth of Fintech business. I won't go into the details, but let's look into some of the examples of the regulations which changed long time existed regulation. The real-name verification. It is Korean's very unique identification process introduced in 1993. The main purpose of this real-name verification is to verify the identity of the person who intends to open a bank account in order to prevent any problems involving borrowed named accounts such as tax evasion or bribery. The problem is how to verify the real name. Under the Real Name Act, there is no restrictions on how to verify the real name of customers except the requirement to check ID. But however, the ruling of the supervisory authority was that face-to-face verification was necessary. As such, it was one of the main hurdles for the establishment of online financial service channels, including internet bank. But in 2015, the Financial Supervisory Commission of Korea issued a new ruling which permitted real-name verification through non-face-to-face identifications. According to the ruling, non-face-to-face verification shall use at least two of the following methods: a photocopy of ID, video call, verification at the time of delivery of access means, use of existing account, other similar means such as biometric. Also, it is recommended that additional verification be used, including identification by other institutions such as mobile authentications or other verification of personal information. The other example is the regulation on authentication and securities. In the past, the use of digital authentication certificate was required for electronic financial transactions. And if a financial company wanted to use other authentication method, it was required to get approval from the Authentication Method Evaluation Committee. And the approval standard of the committee was very strict, so truly there had been only one case so far which was approved to fully replace the digital authentication certificate. Also, before a financial company introduced a new IT system or new IT service, it should go through prior security review of the financial supervisory services. This security review sometimes took several months, so it means that when new IT service launched to the market finally, it became outdated. However, as various technologies on security and authentication appeared, the government amended the relevant law and adopted the principle of technology neutrality. It also abolished requirement for digital authentication certificate, and the Authentication Method Evaluation Committee was also abolished. And the prior security review, which takes a few months, are also abolished. It means that now financial companies in Korea have discretion to determine which method of authentication and security they will use for their services. of course, they should take responsibility for such choice. And let's into a few more examples. Internet bank. The launch of Internet bank is also very significant milestones. After the government's announced plan to grant license for Internet bank in 2015, most of material ICT companies and financial companies participate in consortium to apply for the preliminary license of Internet bank. And finally, 2 consortium was selected, and they are ready to open the Internet bank within this year. Actually, there had been a attempt to set up Internet bank in the past, but all of those attempts failed. One of the hurdles was the real name verification issues that we discussed previously. Because face-to-face verification was necessary to open a bank account, Internet bank without any offline channel was not possible. Now the government has improved many financial regulations for supporting the Internet bank, and we are waiting for launch of the Internet bank. One of the controversial issues to be resolved in relation to the Internet bank is separation of banking and commerce. In Korea, the principle of separation of banking and commerce has been strictly followed. The logic behind it was to protect banks from the control of conglomerates. However, in Internet bank, active participation of ICT companies is essential for Internet bank to take root in the market, and it is also inevitable to amend such principle of separation of banking and commerce to some extent. Actually, currently, the amendment to the Banking Act to permit an IT companies to be a controlling shareholder of an Internet bank is pending at the National Assembly of Korea. And about the crowdfunding. Now in Korea, many crowdfunding platforms are connecting investors who are looking for the investment opportunity and the businessmen who needs funding. But until recently, it was unclear whether the regulation on public offering should be applied to equity crowdfunding. As you may know, public offering needs to go through long and complicated process, including extensive documentations and disclosures. But amendment to the Korean Capital Market Act in January this year introduced online small investment brokerage, which is a crowdfunding platform. This amendment released businessmen who wants to fund money from the crowdfunding from the long and complicated public offering process. Still, debt-based crowdfunding, namely P2P lending, still lacks the legal ground, and it is currently achieved in a rather roundabout ways through an alliance with money lending companies. So clear legal ground for this P2P lending is one of the tasks to be accomplished in the near future. The remittance, global money transfer, is one of the areas where Fintech is most actively engaged in. To support remittance by Fintech companies, Korea's foreign exchange regulation was amended to introduce foreign exchange remittance business. This means that non-banking companies may engage in remittance of foreign exchange in a small amount. However, this regulation still requires alliance with the banking because the remittance business can be performed only in a form of business delegation from the bank to a remittance company. So there is a strong argument that this does not help Fintech companies' remittance business. And relating to the entry barrier, the Electronic Financial Transaction Act of Korea, which mainly governs the requirement to launch Fintech business, reduce the minimum capital requirement of small-sized fintech business, and also to support funding for the fintech business, the government permitted financial holding companies and banks to acquire fintech companies as their subsidiaries. The venture capital was also permitted to invest in the fintech industry. Despite those tremendous changes and the regulations made so far, there is a long way to go. First of all, there should be continuing effort to establish consistent and rule-based regulations for fintech. Many of the existing Korean regulations on the financial industry may not fully deal with the fintech services of IT companies. For examples, the Electronic Financial Transaction Act, which is the basic legal ground for fintech business, may not address the emergence of new fintech business because the act has very positive system in relation to the type of business permitted under the law, which is based on formality of providing business services, not substance. Also, the fintech business may be additionally governed by the regulations which originally governed each financial business area, such as Banking Act or Insurance Act. The problem is that those regulations were originally made for the offline financial business, so it may not effectively address the issues arising from the fintech business. In order to govern new and various fintech business, the rule-based regulation is essential. For instance, the scope of electronic financial business needs to be expanded and based on negative systems so that the law can timely capture new business emerging every day. A year ago, everybody said fintech. Now everybody says big data. The big data is not used for the fintech only, but big data is the core component for fintech to establish new area beyond traditional financial business. But Korea's very strict data protection regulations are preventing active use of big data. Data protection system in Korea is based on opt-in method. This means that prior written consent of an individual is necessary in case of collection, use, provision of personal information. The way to use the big data is de-identifications. The personal information is defined as information based on which an individual can be identified easily in combination with other information. Therefore, theoretically, personal data without any identification information should be able to use without prior consent. However, in practice, it is not that simple. It is very critical to determine the scope of the identification. Because of the development of technology, even from data without name, ID numbers, address, a person can be identified if certain processing, analyzing, and combination process is performed. So, the value of big data is dependent on the scope of the identification information, and as such, the required level of the identification should be clearly and reasonably established. Lastly, protection of financial customer is the key factor of the success of fintech in Korea. While the fintech will enhance the convenience of the customers, like expansion of financial service channels, the risk of accidents like information leakage or hacking or unfair sales activities will inevitably increase. In the past, when the compliance with a single standard was sufficient, the only issue was whether a financial company complied with such standard or not. Now, financial companies have autonomy and responsibility after the regulations. Therefore, in case of an accident, it will require complicated analysis to determine who is responsible and whether a financial company reasonably chose and operated its system. On the other hand, customers may have difficulty in proving faults of the financial companies or fintech companies, since it is not easy for customers to understand complicated technology adapted by those companies. Therefore, the system for prompt dispute resolutions and compensation for customers should be also considered. The fintech industry in Korea is rapidly growing. Unfortunately, the Korean government is largely interested in fintech and is actively giving support to this area. Maybe it's not sufficient to the market, and there are a lot of tasks to be done, but I expect that Korea's fintech industry will grow and grow more and more through a lot of communications and cooperation ongoing the government and the industry. Thank you for listening and enjoy the day.
Ms. Shim, we have a question from the audience. 질문이 있거든요. 하나 받아주시겠습니까? The question is, the new Korean parliament has dismissed the banking deregulation law, which was supposed to be passed. We all expect it, but it was dismissed. What is the implication or the impact of the internet banks that were supposed to be introduced this year, such as K-Bank or Kakao Bank? Do you have any insight to share, please?
Okay, can I speak in Korean? 이게 제가 말씀드린 the principle of separation of banking and commerce에 대한 이슈인데, 지금 올해 런칭하기로 했던 모든 인터넷 뱅크에는 중요한 IT 컴퍼니들이 주주로 참여를 하고 있고, 이 주주들이 참여한 전제는 올해 안에 은행법이 개정돼서 그 Principle of Separation of Commerce and Banking이 완화될 거라는, 최소한 인터넷 뱅크에 대해서 완화될 거라는 전제를 가지고 한 것이었습니다. 근데 여러 가지 이유로 어쨌든 19대 국회에서 그 은행법이 통과가 되지 못하고 국회의원들이 바뀌면서 그 은행법은 자동으로 폐기가 된 상태입니다. 그래서 지금 현재로서는 예전 은행법에 기해서 IT 컴퍼니가 컨트롤링 쉐어홀더가 아닌 상태에서 인터넷 뱅크를 시작할 수밖에 없는 상태입니다. 그렇지만 사실 지금 여전히 정부의 입장은 적어도 인터넷 뱅크에 대해서는 이런 IT 컴퍼니들이 컨트롤링 쉐어홀더가 될 수 있도록 하겠다라는 것이 구전 입장이고, 그렇지 않다면 이 인터넷 뱅크는 그냥 은행들의 인터넷 뱅킹하고 아무런 차이가 없다라고 하는 것이 정부의 굳은 의지입니다. 그래서 이 은행법 개정안은 계속해서 20대 국회에서도 개정 시도가 될 걸로 예상이 되고 있고요. 다만 개정될 때까지는 인터넷 뱅크는 지금 이제 런칭될 인터넷 뱅크는 기존 은행법 하에서 금융기관들이 대주주가 되고 IT 컴퍼니들은 약간 2대 주주나 3대 주주가 된 상태에서 영업을 할 수밖에 없을 것 같습니다. 그리고 대기업 집단 지정은 원래 지금 개정되려고 했던 은행법의 내용은 대기업 집단이 아닌 회사들, 아닌 그 비금융 회사들이 인터넷 은행의 대주주가 될 수 있게 하겠다라는 이제 전제에서 시작을 사실 했습니다. 그래서 언론 통해서 알겠지만 카카오 같은 곳은 이제 대기업이 아니었기 때문에 충분히 그 예외의 적용을 받을 수 있었는데, 지금 이제 대기업 집단이 돼버린 상황이라 좀 굉장히 여러 가지 변수가 좀 상존하게 됐습니다. 그 해결책에 대해서는 사실 정부도 여러 가지로 생각을 하고 있는 상황입니다. 그러니까 이런 이제 IT 컴퍼니에 대해서는 대기업 집단 지정을 좀 달리 생각하는 문제도 정부 고위층의 의지로 좀 생각을 하고 있고, 그리고 은행법 자체에 대기업 집단에서는 예외를 인정하지 않았던 것을 좀 다시 고려를 하는 입장도 있습니다. 사실 19대 국회에 여러 가지 이제 은행법 개정안이 사실 논의가 됐었는데, 그 중에는 대기업 집단도 인터넷 뱅크의 대주주가 될 수 있게 하자는 안도 분명히 있었고요. 그래서 이번에 이제 다음 카카오가 대기업이 되면서 그런 거에 대한 여러 가지 논의를 거친 끝에 이제 새롭게 은행법 개정안이 국회로 올라가지 않을까 생각이 됩니다.
Well, thank you very much for your insight. Thank you.